As a global voice against abuses gains momentum, a question simultaneously arises. Are we fighting for abuses against women or all genders? Here in our hands we have a case in which a wife has been abusing her husband for over 2 years now by abducting his daughter to New Zealand. And what's worse is that she has been holding the daughter hostage and has been forcing the husband to meet her demands, otherwise to break all communicational channels between father and daughter. The unfortunate part is that in the past couple of years, all communications have ended because Regina has gotten her way. This is a story of the father, Arvind Konasakaran, fighting for the safe return of his daughter, Ziona Kashmira, who has been abducted by his wife, Regina to New Zealand. The appalling fact about the story is that the government of New Zealand is abetting to this crime of Regina. Now, all information that is about to be divulged to the global audience and the media has been vetted through and approved by the Legal Council of Malaysia and the Royal Malaysian Police Force. We have prepared a timeline to assist in bringing to light to the global audience and the members of the media on what had happened throughout the period right up to the current time of this scenario of abduction. Now, in 2011, Arvind and Regina had gotten married in Malaysia. In 2012, Regina gives birth to their daughter, Ziona Kashmira. Now, in 2014, Regina makes false police reports stating that Arvind Konasakaran and his family have been abusing her in Malaysia. And the police had carried out their investigations, had even come to the house to interrogate the husband and the family, to only later learn that Regina had made a false police report, or rather a series of false police reports, to mislead the Malaysian police force. A verbal and formal warning was issued to Regina for this act of hers. Now, in 2015 May, Regina fakes losing the national identification card of Ziona Kashmira, only to make a new one so that she could make a new passport for Ziona Kashmira without the consent of her father. Now, a passport was made and kept by Regina without the knowledge of Arvind Konasakaran, the father of Ziona. Now, in June 2015, Regina decides to fly off to New Zealand under the pretext of visiting her sister. Now, this information was only given 2 days prior to her departure to Arvind Konasakaran, when Arvind had questioned her about the care of their daughter. Regina had answered that the care and welfare of the daughter was not her priority at that point in time. And 2 days later, she flies off to New Zealand to live with her sister, leaving Arvind to care solely by himself of the daughter. With the assistance of his parents, Arvind had made sure that Ziona had a good life growing up, and they had actually enrolled her in a kindergarten in Malaysia called QDs. And this information was actually verified by the principal of the kindergarten herself. Now, in 2016, January 2016, Regina had decided to book a flight ticket for herself and Ziona Kashmira without letting anyone know. And this information had only come to light to our investigation team in 2017. Now, in January 2016, the flight tickets were booked for Ziona and Regina. In June 2016, Regina decides to fly back to Malaysia to assist in her sister's wedding preparations. And on the 1st of June 2016, Regina returns to Malaysia. The 1st of June is also the birth date of Arvind. Now she goes back to Arvind's place, immediately packs her bags and Ziona's bags, and goes off to her sister's without much of an announcement to Arvind or the family. On the 4th of June, the sisters' wedding takes place, and on the 5th, Regina Silvakumaran, Ziona Kashmira, and Regina's family go off for a vacation. On the 5th of June was also the date where Arvind informs Regina that the daughter, Ziona Kashmira, would be having her school term start on the 13th of June, by which Ziona was expected to return home so that she can resume school. On the 11th of June, based on the reports that were made, Regina Silvakumaran had stormed out of the house with Ziona. She had gone off to the Rawang police station in Malaysia to make a police report and was not heard from since. Regina was tried to be contacted by Arvind Konasakaran, but it was all in vain. On the 13th of June, Arvind Konasakaran tried to contact Regina again, but could not get a hold of her. The school's term had started and the daughter was nowhere to be found, neither was Regina. On the 19th of June, Arvind Konasakaran gets a call from Regina. Regina calls Arvind and informs him that she wants Ziona to study in New Zealand. Arvind had not consented to this, and Regina had stated that if he were to not consent, she would sever all ties between father and daughter. She sends an email to Arvind demanding for his signature to allow for the daughter to study in New Zealand, but Arvind had not responded to her demands. On the 8th of July, Regina calls and demands again for Arvind's signature and threatens to cut all communication between father and daughter. At this juncture, Regina had made Ziona speak to her father, and while talking to her father, Ziona had mentioned that she missed the father and that she wanted to come back. At this sentence, Regina takes the phone away from Ziona and disconnects the line. Now, on the 5th of August, upon much investigation, we find out that Regina had written a letter to the New Zealand authorities declaring herself the legal guardian of Ziona and had forged the signature of Arvind Konasakaran, the father. Now, she had provided the Immigration of New Zealand an email address that was created by her, which in itself is an act of impersonation. Now, false documents were given to the government of New Zealand and the Immigration of New Zealand to mislead them and manipulate them into allowing for Regina and Ziona to reside in New Zealand. Fearing for the safety of the daughter, and without all these information made available to Arvind, Arvind files for custody, sole custody of Ziona Kashmira in the Malaysian courts. On the 12th of October 2016, Arvind was granted sole custody of Ziona Kashmira. Upon investigations, we later on found out that on December 2016, Regina Silvakumaran, while still being legally married in Malaysia, had gotten married in New Zealand to a David Jonovich. Now, pictures of Regina, David, and David's children from his previous marriages were made available on Facebook and were viewable. However, nowhere was Ziona's pictures or whereabouts updated. So the safety and concern of Ziona Kashmira had become vital to Arvind Konasakaran. In January 2017, Arvind writes into the New Zealand immigration to seek their assistance in finding out the whereabouts of the daughter, for he had started fearing for the safety of his daughter in a grave manner. And the lack of communication or correspondence from the Immigration of New Zealand had forced Arvind Konasakaran to hire a lawyer, an attorney in New Zealand. in February 2017, Regina attempts to file for an interim custody in Malaysia, an interim custody of Ziona. This was later on struck off by the Malaysian courts, for they had found out that Regina had given them false information and had hidden the fact that Arvind had already been granted sole custody of Ziona. The correspondence address of Arvind Konasakaran, upon checking the documents, was found out to be that of Regina's sisters. No documents, no letters were formally served to Arvind Konasakaran. Now, between the 2017 February and May, Regina had delivered David's child. Now, we are not too sure of the timeline, but the only evidence that we had gotten from the investigations were that of a Facebook update on May 2017, in which a child was being held by David Jonovich, and a document that was submitted to the Immigration of New Zealand declaring that David was a father and Regina was the mother, and they were caring for this particular child. On the 15th of March 2018, a deportation liability notice was issued on the basis of forgery and fraudulence under Section 157 of the Immigration Act of New Zealand, and was initiated after investigation. Now, Regina was to reply within 14 days to the Immigration of New Zealand, which she failed to do. And what was appalling is that the Immigration of New Zealand or the government had not taken any action whatsoever towards this act of Regina Silvakumaran. On the 14th of May 2014, a James Casson from the Immigration of New Zealand was contacted by the attorney of Arvind Konasakaran, but there was no clear response on the matter pertaining to the deportation liability of Ziona. Now, in April 2018, an associate minister of New Zealand was contacted on the matter. On the 3rd of August 2018, James Casson relays the information that the deportation liability had been cancelled based on citing that the investigation team has been given fair evidence or fair reason to permit Ziona's stay in New Zealand with Regina. Now, all evidence have been submitted to the Immigration of New Zealand and the government authorities of New Zealand. Hence, the question remains, are they going to honour the request of the father to return the daughter back to Malaysia? The father who is the appointed legal guardian by the courts of Malaysia, or are they still going to abet to a criminal who has abducted the child to New Zealand? The visa of Ziona Kashmira is coming to an expiry on the 6th of October 2018. Arvind Konasakaran has communicated to the authorities in New Zealand stating that he wishes for the visa to not continue after the 6th of October 2018 and to allow for the daughter to be returned to Malaysia. This information had also been relayed to the authorities by the attorney appointed by Arvind Konasakaran in New Zealand and have been acknowledged by the authorities themselves. Question is, are they going to heed the request, or are they going to still keep abetting a criminal who has abducted a child into New Zealand? Now, Regina's case is not the only case that has been taking place in New Zealand. Our investigations have shown that she was assisted by her sister and her brother-in-law, who have been doing such acts for over a decade now. Evangeline Silvakumaran and Ratnam Renugopal, the sister, Evangeline, and the sister's husband, Ratnam Renugopal, have been bringing in people into New Zealand with forged documents and false information to manipulate the system in New Zealand to allow for them to live and work in New Zealand. All this has been happening right under the noses of the authorities of New Zealand, And what is surprising is that these people are commoners. And how is it that commoners are able to do such criminal activities under the noses of the government of New Zealand? New Zealand, being a first world country, is expected to have their security in such high levels. And how is it that despite such security, that these acts are being able to be committed is utterly shocking to people like us in Malaysia. Another peculiar thing that is questionable is the fact that the immigration of New Zealand, and even the government of New Zealand, could not follow their own instruction. They did not adhere to the rules and regulations that they had set forth and are making it difficult onto themselves. So how is it that it's tolerated when the declaration that is made by Regina is entirely false? Is it that the immigration of New Zealand or the government is that lenient to allow for people to break their own law? Now we seek the assistance of the global media, the global people, and also the media and people of New Zealand to assist in bringing back Ziona Kashmira to her father in Malaysia. For too much has taken place to abuse the father and daughter, that these things have to be stopped immediately. How the government handles the issues pertaining to Regina and her family is not of our concern at this juncture. Our only request to the government and the immigration of New Zealand is to return Ziona Kashmira to Arvind Konasakaran in Malaysia.